Good morning, everyone. We're going to wait just a couple of minutes until everyone has signed in and logged in, and then we will start in a couple of seconds. Thank you. All right, so again, good morning. I am delighted to welcome you all to our webinar on reducing food waste in grocery stores and supermarkets. My name is Hibartel, and I'll be your host for today's session. I am the Education and Outreach Specialist with the Santa Clara County Food Recovery Program. This program is charged with countywide implementation of SB 1383 food recovery requirement on behalf of all Santa Clara County cities. We are responsible for identifying and providing education and outreach to regulated entities, collecting reporting, monitoring compliance, including conducting inspections. I am also joined today with Kira Lowe, the program manager for Santa Clara County Food Recovery Program. You can see Kira right now on your screen, and she will be joining us later on to discuss SB 1383 food recovery compliance in the latter part of this webinar. Today, we are here to explore practical strategies and creative solutions to prevent food surplus, a challenge that has significantly impacting the food service industry. We have a lineup of wonderful experts who gave us some time to record their segment, and they will share their insight, their best practices, their success stories in food waste reduction. So whether you're a manager or a store leader, a compliance coordinator, or just simply passionate about sustainability, this webinar will offer some valuable knowledge and actionable tips that you can implement in your own operations. So again, thank you for joining us, and let's begin. Just a couple of housekeeping notes. Please don't hesitate to ask any questions you may have. We will answer them at the end of the session. We have compiled many resources from industry groups and businesses across the country, and we will share best practices around those food waste prevention. That being said, you are the experts, so we would love to also hear from you. Please chime in the chat box and let us know about food waste prevention strategies in your operation. And finally, a survey will pop up when you leave this webinar. Please take a minute to fill out this short survey. We would love to hear from you and get some feedback from you. This webinar will highlight industry insight and best practices and best examples on food waste prevention. We will also provide examples and case studies of local grocery stores that have successfully reduced or prevented their surplus food. And like I mentioned earlier, Kira will cover SB 1383 requirements, as well as review the law and provide information on how to set up your donation program for your food surplus. We are aware that you know some of these prevention strategies, but we are hoping that you can pick up some new ones as well today. Just to give you an overview of the scale of this issue, so according to REFED, a national nonprofit organization working to highlight food waste solutions across the supply chain, 496,000 tons of surplus food was generated in 2022 by retailers in California. This surplus breakdown includes 36% produce, 12% fresh meat and seafood, similarly, dairy and eggs, 11% bread and bakery, and 10% prepared food. And you can look on your slide and also see the amount of how many tons of weight that this surplus food produces. Keeping that number in mind, it's important to recognize that when food is wasted, so too are the land, water, labor, energy, and other resources used throughout the production, processing, transportation, sorting, etc. So reducing food loss and waste can benefit the environment, your communities, and your business alike. Preventing is key to stopping that food waste before it happens. Therefore, the Environmental Protection Agency most preferred pathway is to prevent food waste, and the least preferred option is sending that food waste to landfills. Reducing surplus food production or eliminating it altogether is the best way to minimize that environmental impact on your food, on the food operation, but it also is the best approach and it makes more sense business-wise. The bottom line is that you'll be losing less food, you'll be generating more income and helping the environment. So it's a win-win-win, I guess. Prevention strategies can be implemented at various stages of your operation. For this session, we will focus on 3 areas: purchasing, storage and prep, setup and display. We will offer tips for each of them, and our speakers will further elaborate with examples. And of course, communication is important across all of these stages, and we will speak on that a little later. So starting with the first stage, during purchasing, having a good system set up to effectively manage stock is key to reducing food waste. And it is the most cost-effective strategy. And this can be done by either utilizing inventory management tools or software that can accurately give you an inventory or provide you with an inventory before placing an order with your supplier. Diminish overstocking by encouraging first in, first out approach. In some cases, it is first expire, first out approach, and establishing an efficient expiration management system so your store doesn't miss or forget fresh items that are nearing expiration date. In addition to that, increasing delivery frequency. Therefore, you're ensuring that your stock is rotating regularly, and that leads to less spoilage and surplus, as well as increasing communication with your supplier. Therefore, you also, by letting them know your food waste strategy regarding, so they can know a little bit more about your food waste strategy, and they can help you with that, and they will be aware of that. As for storage and prep, keeping your cold chain from breaking down, preserve the shelf life and maintains quality until your customer buys that product. And some key points to keep track of are checking the delivery truck temperature, especially during those hot summers, keeping the backroom stock in the right place at the right temperature, and as well as building lighter display for product that need to stay cold. Some additional tips regarding the stockroom are restock the shelf with older products front and center and keep them moving. Rotating highly perishable products to avoid bruising, wilting, and other damages, as well as store and rotate backroom stock properly, restocking often and keeping that back stock to minimal amounts. And this goes back to our previous point where when you are communicating with your supplier and having supply deliver more frequently, therefore you're having less stock and restocking frequently, therefore you'll have less spoilage. Whether in the deli or other department in your store, training and educating your staff is crucial to reducing food waste. Train your team on knife skills to make more efficient cuts that utilizes more of the food being prepared. Additionally, making sure that all of the food items are placed in proper storage areas in appropriate containers at optimum temperature. Also, labeling all the perishable product in the kitchen is key. A helpful tip I heard is in some kitchens, they use color-coded labeling system to make it easier to know what category of item is in which container. Also, proper training of staff regarding donation and sale of products based on labeling dates is helpful because it helps you avoid premature and unnecessary discard due to misinterpretation of dates. Some additional practices within the deli department to extend shelf life of perishable products are meat marination if appropriate, repurposing perishable products in the deli and in the grab-and-go section, cook, freeze, or juice. Some items are approaching the end of their peak freshness. And I won't elaborate more on this. Our speaker will have much more tangible examples for you, so I'll leave that for later. Big and beautiful displays of stacked and packed shelves aren't always the best for stores that want to reduce waste. So store associates can use proper space allocation to optimize display for minimal waste, build lighter displays for products that need to stay cold, increase rotation to avoid physical and shelf life deterioration, such as for a star product like strawberries, which go bad faster when they go above 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Also, another tip that I learned is the air in the produce department tend to be chilled and constantly circulating, which creates challenges for your fresh food. Therefore, maintaining your sprayers and your mist systems to keep perishables fresh, such as lettuce, celery, or cruciferous veggies like the bok choy, the broccoli, and cauliflower is key also here. Another tip is enable your consumers to purchase smaller and customized portions, such as sliced cakes or pies. This way, you don't end up with having to waste that pie or cake because some customers do not want to buy the whole thing. However, and also you are generating revenue instead of wasting that food. Implementing a dynamic pricing and markdown strategies, such as markdown app alerts, that increases the sale of short-life products. Set up a discount shelf for ripe or imperfect product, near to expire or discount also items. But make sure that you provide clear communication about why this area has a reduced price section. Couple of other tidbits is adjust consumer expectation on the availability of fresh products, such as bread and hot and prepared food toward the end of your service to minimize that overproduction. Also allow prepared food to run out near closing and track these items and only make as much as you can sell. And talking about tracking, this is a key principle that allows you to establish a baseline that is essential for setting up the goals and measuring your progress. What you cannot manage, what you do not measure. So observing the trend in waste generation can help identify what is a seasonal variation, what is an item that is popular and an item that is not popular, and help you also put effort in waste reduction at your business. On top of that, it helps you identify a problem, such as inefficiency in food preparation or inefficiency in your inventory management. And finally, it also increases your employee awareness. It makes your employee aware of the amount of and the type of food that is generated, and it leads to more mindful practices. What you can measure during in your waste log can be diverse. It can be very expansive, and also it can also you can find a lot of tools online to how big your waste log can be. But the basics are what you can measure are identifying what you're throwing away, tracking the quantity and the number of the items, the reason why it's being disposed, expiration dates of the items when applicable, and whether the food is still wholesome and edible. And this way you can rethink about your donation and your surplus program. All right, so I'm very happy to introduce our first case study, David Ramirez, who's the store team leader from Nob Hill. David will be talking about their strategy at their store, so I'm gonna leave you with David, sorry.
Hello, my name is David Ramirez. I'm the store team leader at store 602, Nob Hill Foods in Gilroy, California. And I wanted to share with you guys a couple of the things that we do to prevent surplus. I know in the grocery industry, we have a lot of mechanics going on and it gets really busy. So one of the things that we try to do is to make sure that we get our team involved. We do a huddle every morning. I usually do it at 8:15. I try to keep it at the same time, keeps everybody involved. Some of the things in the huddle that we do is communicating that we are trying to make sure we contribute and we're helping out in preventing surplus. Some things that we're always doing is transferring items from the produce to the bakery or from the produce to the deli, items that we don't need to be ordering extra. So that way we could use the product that we have in hand to help out to get that product through the doors. We also do a lot of our markdowns inside in the meat department to make sure that before it's not at its greatest point, we sell it out at a discounted price. We do it in the meat department. We do some into the bakery. So it helps out to make sure that we just flush through items. In the produce department, I'm sure you guys have a big area there. We have a lot of fruit that if it's not moving, what are you going to do with it, right? One of the things that we do is we'll get the items, for example, is your tangerines. They come in a bag. Usually they're a bit mushy, right? You have one that's mushy. We like to open them up. We'll put it in a program that we give free fruit for kids. It's a great program. It's a great way to have a conversation with your customers, build that relationship, and also help out with surplus. So when you get through that, you have bananas, you got apples, you have tangerines. There's a lot of different things that you could put in there. So it's a win-win situation with your customer service and surplus. We also do we're in the Silicon Valley, so we try to use technology, right? So we have an expiration date management. We'll go around through the whole store and we make sure that we're going through there and the computer actually tells us what hasn't been rotated, what needs to be marked down, and what items are going to be expiring pretty soon. So that way, when we get to those items that are not expired, we can get to that, mark it down, or transfer it, try to use it in other departments. So it's a great tool. Not every store that I've been to has that capability, but it's called expiration date management, and it's a great tool that we try to use. It takes a little bit of time when you got to train our employees to where they navigate to the tablets, but once they get it down, it's pretty easy, and it covers the whole store. One of the areas that I like to share with my team in the huddles is it's hard to communicate with 100 employees, right? So how do you get the message from the morning to the evening crew? And it's really hard, but I find it that it's really easy when you give them visuals. So when you try to give them visuals of what items can be surplus, because there's some things that you can't avoid, right? We want to make sure that we're donating those items and they're not being thrown away. There's multiple things that team members have questions on, so they can look at the pictures, or when in doubt, if you have an area in the store, make sure that they put them in there so we can go through them and we could either see if we could transfer them to a department or can we donate that item, right? The item's still in perfect condition, we could always donate it. I just really wanted to share that if you build a culture in your store, that's the real key. Trying to get the message to everyone and getting that culture going. Everybody doing the same thing every day. I know it's hard, but if you have the same message every day, it works. And that's a little bit of my know-all that I want to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. Let me turn my camera back on. Thank you so much, David, for sharing your expertise with us. We are very grateful for the actionable tips and the insight you provided. I would like to take a second to jump on a point that David mentioned, and it's the role of staff. Like any business, getting your team on board is crucial for success, and therefore communication is key. An informed staff is your first line of defense against grocery store food waste. Some of the practices are engaging your team to promote their support, regular check-in, like David mentioned, regarding huddles or staff meetings, to ask questions, provide updates, and suggest maybe a more efficient operation. It will also help you identify any additional training or refreshment of procedure that is needed. Also highlighting the benefit of waste and waste reduction and donating surplus. Making it safe to talk about food waste, encouraging staff to reach out and discuss with you if they saw something wasted. So giving that open space for them to do so is very important. And maybe designate a food waste champion or a warrior at your store or in your business, someone who is a champion for sustainability. So these are a couple of tips. If you have some additional ones, feel free to put them for us in the chat. Finally, before we move to our second guest, also not only engaging your staff, but also your customer engagement is important. So maybe providing some taste samples. So train your staff to remind customers that they can try and sample if this is something that you do in your store. Or if you want to sell something or move something, maybe provide some customers with samples. Also, digital communication by pushing notification or emails containing tips, recipes, or alerts about upcoming markdown to keep your customer informed and to keep on moving that surplus or that to prevent that waste. Finally, I wanted to touch upon employee donation. I've spoken to many grocery stores that have a robust employee donation program, which provides a great sense of community and also improves the morale in the store and will help you move that surplus and prevent that surplus from happening. So it's something to also consider. Allow me to now introduce our second speaker, Gunel Ammermann, who is the Operation Director at the market at Edgewood. She'll be sharing additional practical strategies that have helped her to tackle food waste and reduce surplus at her business. Here's Gunel.
Hi, my name is Gunel, and I work for the market at Edgewood, which is a family-owned business. It's owned by my sister, my dad, and my brother-in-law. So at the market, we have come a long way with repurposing food, not only making sure that we take our extra items that are in overstock or close to expiration dates to sell, we do donate them, but we have become very skilled at repurposing food and making sure that it is available for human consumption in many different ways. The market is very lucky as we do have multiple departments that allow us to do this. We do have a traditional style butcher department where all the meats are there to purchase, fresh cut in front of you where it's pre-wrapped, as well as a huge produce selection with many varieties of produce. And we also have a bakery department, a deli department that also offers catering. And all these departments really allow us to repurpose a lot of the foods that we have, especially the produce and the meat. Some of the ways that we have succeeded in this, of course, is, always coming up with some kind of procedure. So what we found easiest was to go ahead and make section in every department. We have section in produce department where all of what most people will consider the ugly fruit or the ugly vegetables or things that are on their ripening stage, they all go into our produce department in a certain section. And we have this for our grocery department as well. So things that are close to expiration, we put into those sections, the grocery section with those items. And our dairy section also has where the milk and the eggs go. So the way we repurpose this after having those sections for our team to go to is in so many different ways. We have our deli team that goes into the section and creates dishes and new dishes. For example, one of the main items is eggplants. Eggplants have a certain amount of shelf life, and once they get a little bruising, most people will not pick it up or will get it, or they'll be a little dense because someone press the vegetable in, or guacamole, avocados. It's amazing how avocados, when they are touched by customers, some customers really do press it hard, so then it'll create a bruising, but the whole avocado is very good to use. So our deli department will go ahead and we have guacamole. So we have in-house guacamole. With the tomatoes that we have, we use it to make salsa, our fresh salsa as well. The zucchinis that are almost starting to have a little wrinkle in them, but they are still very good and good to consume. We make soups chicken noodle soup has it. We also make other dishes. Sometimes we'll make dishes for catering that will be something off the menu, but we could also work out for the customer if they want something different. Our lasagna also has zucchinis in it, which is great because it takes a lot of vegetables to be in there. Our bell peppers are also utilized in our lasagna, vegetable lasagna as well. The other way that we use the fruit is to basically cut them up. We have a lot of fruit coming in at times, you know, due to having a good sale. And so we'll have a lot of fruit coming in, but then they'll ripen. So what we will do is take those ripe mangoes and we'll cut them up for the customers and it'll be prepackaged. Sometimes we will cut, there'll be a surplus due to the sales. So what we'll do before the shelf life expires is we're gonna go ahead and we freeze those mangoes. We will freeze the pineapples that were pre-cut, but we know that won't sell within 2 or 3 days. We make it available for the customers to get the fruit from our produce department into our freezer department. We also have bananas that are also frozen because, of course, so many people use all this fruit for smoothies. So that's another way utilizing the fruit from being packaged and to frozen. And the other thing that I would also like to talk about is how we optimize our meat in our meat department. So we have a fresh seafood case, and we have a lot of salmon coming in with fresh deliveries. And as we all know, that shelf life of fish is not that long. So what we do is our deli department will take salmon, either surplus of the salmon, but most importantly, it's also the cuttings. So we make sure that we use the cuttings from the salmon that we do not sell for the customer because those cuttings are not as attractive. So what we do is take those cuttings as well as the surplus of the salmon, and we make salmon cakes. We also have shrimp cakes. That's another way of doing repurposing salmon and seafood. There are times we also make the salmon salads, which is also very delicious and good. The other ways that our meat department also utilizes a surplus of meat is by marination. So we have our butcher who is fantastic at making his own marinades, and he does get creative with them. So we do have different flavors all the time. It also makes it quite convenient for the customer when they don't have time to marinate it for 6 hours or 12 hours. And the customer could come in and just buy it automatically and it's ready to go and ready to cook. Instead of throwing meat out with the surplus, you marinate it. It extends the shelf life. It makes it available and more convenient for the customer as well. Our deli department also utilizes a lot of the meat, large cut meats. For example, we'll make pozole or soup. Our deli department has become very creative, and it's become its own, I don't know, it's become a different culture where our team members are able to use their own creativity to come up with new recipes with what they have available or what is surplus or what is not attractive to the customer's eye. So we're able to turn all those items into delicious food. It's literally delicious food. The other thing that I would like to also talk about is our dairy department. When we have surplus of eggs or eggs that are close to expiring, we use in our baking and our cakes and our cookies. And sometimes we do make a lot of cakes. And what we do when we have surplus of cakes is we place them up for the customers. Instead of only making large amount of food and making large amount of food available. Our teams have learned how to make different portions of food in order to sell it for a customer, because not everyone is a family of 4 or a family of 2. And so having cakes available in pieces versus a whole cake allows the movement of food and that product not going to waste. We have also utilized the frozen fruit in our bakery department as well. So the frozen fruit that we will package, the berries, especially, berries go quickly, but berries have that shelf life of 1 day where they are optimal for tasting. They become ripe, they become sweeter, but they won't last a day further. So instead of waiting another day on the shelf to sell, what we do is freeze it, and then our bakery department will use those berries, the blackberries, the raspberries, into our berries and cream cake. One of my favorites, but it is so delicious. And so we'll utilize that, and that product will not go to waste either. And so during this whole process, I mean, it's not something that happens overnight. That is guaranteed. But what I have noticed by talking with the team and allowing the team to talk of saying, hey, I have all of the salmons, what can we do? Or we have all this berries, what can we do? It's amazing how our teams have changed and how the culture has changed eventually, little by little. But we all take it home. We all, at the market, we all bring it to work. We all get excited about the products that come out from the food that would just go into the garbage, which is so sad. And I've also noticed that our team has started educating customers in regards to how to preserve food better or how to consume it in a different way. Our deli department, after we cook that new batch of soup, one of our team members will be tasting it out and talking about the ingredients and how she has turned that around. Our butcher team will always discuss with customers of if they buy a certain amount of fish, and they talk about recipes, and they'll always talk about another recipe of how they could turn it into something different if they buy a larger amount. So it's if we just open our eyes a little bit of looking at what is in front of us, we have this food that is available to us. We could use it in so many different ways. It's not only in having multiple departments in a market. It's about taking it home and preserving it at home. It's about if you made an extra salsa or sauce, if you made extra sauce, for example, that day, you could freeze it. And then you could use it another time when you don't feel like cooking. Just cook your pasta and then take out that sauce from the freezer, put it in the pan, and it's done in 15 minutes. If we all come together and talk about how we could utilize and preserve food with the methods that are available, we have the tools, we have the education. I mean, we have everything around us to just take it a step further of preserving the food and changing the culture of how we deal with our food. Yeah. And it's fun.
Wow, thank you so much, Gunel. That was terrific. I hope everyone was able to take a number of tips away there. I know I did, and I really love that you brought it full circle to what folks can do in the home, because we know there's a lot of food wasted at home as well, and we know from polls and research, that's happening actively that more and more people are interested in reducing their own waste at home and are interested in knowing about the waste reduction measures at the businesses that they're purchasing from. So I'm going to, in this last segment of the webinar, focus on SB 1383 compliance, specifically with the edible food recovery requirements under SB 1383, and how to go about setting up a food recovery or donation program in order to recover the surplus food that you do have after implementing all of these great prevention strategies in order to be in compliance with the law. So just briefly, an overview of SB 1383, also known as California's short-lived climate pollutant reduction strategy. SB 1383 aims to reduce statewide greenhouse gas emissions, primarily methane, by keeping organic material out of California landfills. So the law sets the following goals statewide, the first two related to keeping organic material out of the landfill. So second one, by 2025, reducing that organic material by 75%. And then the last goal relates to edible food recovery, and that is by 2025, statewide, to recover 20% of edible food that's currently being thrown away to instead feed people. That's a statewide goal. And then how does that relate to grocery stores? So in Santa Clara County, grocery stores that are either over 10,000 square feet or have 2 million or more in revenue are required to comply. And that means submitting a food recovery report annually. That report covers activities in the previous calendar year and is due by May 1st each year. And then second, they're required to donate the maximum amount, this is the legal language, the maximum amount of edible surplus food that would otherwise be wasted to a food recovery organization, and then to keep records on site of that donation program. Basically, all food that can be safely donated, again, that maximum amount is required to be donated under the law, always adhering, of course, to food safety requirements in Cal Code. The law also does prohibit the intentional spoilage of food. So this could be considered throwing edible food in the compost. You're not allowed to intentionally spoil food under the law. So in order to comply, this may mean adopting new strategies to ensure the safety of, for instance, perishable items that you have. So, for example, this might mean freezing. It's best practice to freeze meat on or before the expiration date on the package to ensure, to prolong that shelf life and ensure the safety of that food for donation. This also might mean, for example, scheduling, sort of pulling your dairy products with your donation schedule so that dairy products are not sitting for a number of days before you're donating them, or you may need more frequent deliveries if you're having 2 day a week, more frequent donations. So if you're having 2 day a week donation pickups, but you're finding that you have a lot of perishable items and you're not able to keep those in between your donations, then you may have to increase your donation frequency. So considering strategies that you may have to employ to ensure that you are recovering the maximum amount in compliance with the law of that edible surplus food that you have to donate. So how to go about setting up your food donation program? First is connecting with a food recovery organization that can accept the types and amounts of surplus food that you have to donate. We have a matching tool on our website to help with this that I'll go through in a moment. I know that many of you already have this set up or have used our matching tool before, but we're going to go through it really briefly. As the law requires you to donate the maximum amount, as I mentioned, creating a donation strategy for each department really is important. And ensuring that staff are trained in each department on the protocols for all of the items that you're working with. So I really appreciated what David shared earlier with the photos. Visuals are a great way to train staff and then to also have a resource there for staff to refer back to as they need to keep them refreshed on your systems. All donations should be packaged in food grade boxes or containers. Of course, food safety is paramount, so ensuring that prepared foods are labeled with the date that food is prepared, and the types of food that's for any prepared food items, deli items that aren't pre-labeled. It's important that they're labeled. And then, of course, avoiding cross-contamination by not packaging items of different types, meats and vegetables, for example, in the same boxes or containers. Designating space in your freezer, fridge areas for donations is really important. Ideally, it's really important to label these spaces so that you're not mixing up donations with other food items, and so that staff, again, it's easy, simple, straightforward for staff to know where donations should be put and how they should be organized in that area. Using donation records to reduce surplus. This goes back to everything that Heba and our speakers were speaking to earlier. Donation records are a great way to see what items you regularly have in surplus, and to therefore look on the back end at how you can avoid creating so much surplus of the same item week after week. And then, of course, engaging your team. Like with prevention, food recovery really is a team effort and works best when everyone is aware, engaged, and involved. Again, it's important that all team members are trained on food donation standards and protocols. Another great way to engage your team is to coordinate a volunteer day with your food recovery partner. We've seen this work really well with grocery teams. It helps your employees to see the impact that they're having on the community, to get a sense of where that food's going. So it's not just going into a truck, it's actually getting to the community, and motivates employees to ensure that they're on board with the donation program, but also just is great for employee motivation and team building generally. So this is our website. I hope that many of you have already been here. It looks a little different. We've changed it up recently. But if you go to our website and scroll down to the third step to compliance, which is connecting with a food recovery organization, you'll find a link to the list of food recovery organizations hosted on our website. This takes you to our matching tool, and you can use this tool to find a food recovery organization to work with. There's a filter button there, as you can see. You can select a number of different options. One of the options there is the types of food that you have to donate. So in this case, we're selecting prepared food. You might select shelf-stable food or grocery items, depending on what you have to donate. And then you can see a filtered list of organizations that will work with that. You can also select the types of businesses that these organizations work with. You can select grocery store there or the city that you're in. There's also a category for minimum or maximum amount of donations. So all of these can help you to narrow down a subset of organizations that might be a good fit for your business. You might already be working with an organization, but maybe that organization doesn't accept prepared food items, and you have deli items that you need to donate. So you might use this tool to find another organization to work with for those items specifically. So we'll put that link in the chat as well, so that you can use that directly. Then, of course, back to food safety. As I mentioned before, of course, it's always important to comply with CAL code, whether the food is being sold or donated. So again, you're the experts in food safety. You know how this works. It's the same for food that's being donated. If food isn't safe to eat or isn't appealing enough for you to want to eat, then it probably shouldn't be donated. Keeping in mind that you may have to readjust your systems a little bit to ensure that you are donating high quality food, and that food is not being spoiled where it could be recovered. When it comes to liability, federal and state regulations protect donors from civil and criminal liability, except in the case of gross negligence or intentional misconduct. Legislation passed last year actually extends these liability protections to include donations made directly to needy individuals instead of just to nonprofit organizations. So you can donate directly to individuals in need, and are protected by those same liability protections now. Lastly, keeping in mind that date labels on food are most often quality and not safety labels. Of course, this is something that you all know. And this means that many items can be donated on or even a little after the use by or best by dates on the packaging. So you should, once you have a food recovery partner, you should talk to them about their specific date label policies, as those can vary from organization to organization, but really important to make sure that that system, those standards are built into your SOPs, to your donation protocols, as date labeling can often be confusing for staff, for all of us, and so make sure that's an aspect of your program. I'll also mention that when it comes to vendor credit and backhauling, one thing that some stores are doing and that is surfacing as a best practice is to offer to donate items that you've returned for credit. So in some cases, the vendor will just pick that up and backhaul it to be wasted elsewhere. And so that saves them the transportation and ensures that that food is not wasted and gets to people to eat. So you can offer to include those items in your donation program if that's something that your vendors want to do. So SB 1383 does require certain documents to be kept on site for your food recovery program. So once your program's set up, making sure that you have these records on site at each grocery location. So these can't be held in a corporate office. These have to be on site at the location, either digitally or physically. So the first item is a copy of a contract or written agreement with each food recovery organization you're working with, the organization's name, address, and contact information. This may be part of the contract. The types of food that will be donated. This could be a list of foods that the organization accepts, or it could be a list of food that you and them together have agreed will be donated. The frequency or schedule of donation. So this might be 5 times a week or Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Just needs to be written down somewhere. And then finally, the quantity in pounds of food donated per month. So again, it's important that this is kept on site at the location and that it's kept up to date. That's a requirement under the law. It's also, as we mentioned, a really great prevention strategy. So having these donation records up to date allows you to see what you're continually donating, what items you're continually donating, and how to reduce that on the back end. We will review these documents in an inspection. Also, during an inspection and in reporting, you should be prepared to discuss your food waste prevention strategies. So this is really important in helping to determine that you are indeed recovering the maximum amount of edible food in compliance with the law. So for example, if your donation numbers are lower than an average grocery store, we would expect to see robust prevention measures in place, like those Gunel was talking about and David, to explain how you have reduced the amount of surplus food that you have to donate. So just making sure that you're ready to discuss those as well. And then finally, again, submitting a food recovery report annually. So we are coming up to that reporting date. The deadline's May 1st. We will be sending out links to reporting in the coming weeks. So you'll receive, as you have each year, a link to report via email. We'll also send something in the mail, though we do send a unique link via email, as well as several reminders via email. For some chain stores, reporting is done at the corporate level. Some are doing it individual at the store level. During our initial outreach, we establish with each store who is doing reporting. Once again, while reporting is done, can be done at either level. These records on the screen need to be kept on site at each individual location. So keep an eye out for those reporting emails. And if you have any questions, our email is here. Always feel free to reach out. Thank you so much for joining us. We do have some time for questions now. I will say that this webinar is being recorded. As you've seen, a lot of the tips, we really designed this webinar to be relevant at the store level. So if you are in a corporate office joining us today, please share this with your stores. If you're at the store level, please feel free to share this with other managers or team leads as appropriate. We will send you the recording in the next couple of weeks. As a reminder, we also have a survey that will pop up when you leave this webinar. Please, if you could just take a couple of minutes to complete that, we'd really appreciate it. We made it short. It really only takes a minute, and your feedback is really appreciated. So yeah, if you've got some questions, I haven't checked the chat, but feel free to throw them in there if you haven't already. As well as if there was anything that really stood out to you in this webinar, that you appreciated hearing or that you didn't hear and you want to share, throw it in the chat and we can share that with everyone as well. I believe Gunel is here, and we would love to bring her up to ask her a couple of questions. And while she's coming up, one question that I will answer that came in through the emails quickly is there a minimum amount of food that needs to be donated? There is not. The law does not require any minimum amount of donation. It's only you're required to donate the maximum amount of surplus food that would otherwise be disposed. So if you're giving that food to employees or selling it at a discount, then it doesn't need to be donated. But if you would otherwise dispose of it in the compost, the landfill, wherever, you must donate it. And like I said, if you have low donation numbers, we just expect to see prevention measures in place to show how you're reducing the amount of surplus food that you have to donate. Gunel, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for that.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It was so great to hear all your tips.
Thank you.
Hi, Gunel. How are you?
Hi, Hiba. I'm well. How are you? Thanks for the opportunity.
Good. Well, thank you for giving us the time and discussing all of these wonderful strategy. You made my life a little easier because you went through all the details, so I didn't have to do it on the slide. And people get to see, like I said, experts that are in the field doing this and hear from you. So that was great. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Gunel, I wanted to ask one more question regarding the if you have a system set up. We had talked about engaging all of your staff and keeping them all, but do you have something set up also in regards of to staff giveaways or staff donation regarding that surplus at your store?
Yes, we do. It's in different departments handle it differently, but we do have a sushi department as well. And where that is basically another vendor involved with the market. So we've worked with them when they come in first thing in the morning for the sushi that has not sold. They'll give it to the employees. Like literally they will just hand them out. And when we do have a surplus in bakery, there's some items, close, they get a little dry or we can't sell it the next day. It'll be just put in the break room for employees to take as well. And there's also same thing with sandwiches in the deli. There's times that the sandwiches have a certain shelf life. So, and it has its challenges, don't get me wrong, but it's really made a difference in the employees as well. So there are a lot of times that not everyone is in the same spot where they could always grab food. It's not always available to everyone at all the time. So it has made a difference for our employees, which I think is the biggest benefit, is that human consumption.
Awesome.
That's good to hear. Yeah, I guess one follow-up question there, Gunel, while we're talking about the employees, all your tips were terrific. I'm curious if it was a challenge to bring staff on board to kind of go to the effort of ensuring, okay, the eggplant's getting a bit old, we're going to do this. You've got all these strategies in place. Has it been difficult bringing staff on board, or how do you do that with your team?
It's really, you pick the ones that are into it first. You just strategize on the people that are really into it, and it just becomes its own. Once you have a few people joining you, just encouraging the team when they create something new, tasting it and talking about it is key. Just as you've mentioned, is bringing in people. Yes, there are hiccups, but I don't know of anything that does not have a hiccup. So as long as you visit the topic on a daily basis. And as long as you are involved with your team yourself, because they look up to you. So they look up to your feedback. So I think that was the most successful to get everyone involved, is you giving feedback to them and then talking about what they did and talking about it with the other team members, and then someone else will want to join in, and then someone else is talking about it, and then it goes to a customer, and then it just becomes more culture, to be honest with you.
That's nice to hear. It's like a prevention gossip.
Yeah, but it just becomes part of the day-to-day. I mean, most people look at it as a job or what we do, but we don't look at it. It becomes its own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard that in you speaking. It
Yeah.
sounds so fun. There's so much creativity, right? There's yeah, it sounds really fun. And like you said, so tasty.
Yeah, thank you. And we take it home, and like everyone, it's Hiba and I would, you take it home, you bring it to your kids, you talk about it. Oh, you could freeze this grape instead of having a popsicle, have a frozen grape. I mean, it goes further than what it is. Once you get involved and team members involved, it will grow into something different, which I think in our society we really need. And I'm glad you all are making us see it, because most of the time we're blind to it, and your programs, and it's definitely involved us at the market to see things differently, and it became something different. So thank you.
We really appreciate it. We really, really appreciate you taking the time to speak to everything. What you're doing is really inspirational, and yeah, and I think folks have probably learned a lot. Thanks
so
for
much,
joining
Gunel.
us. I think did you have something else, Heba?
No, I wanted to thank Gunel, and I wanted to also say that David was not able to join us today, as he mentioned, and he was probably very busy. And so I wanted to thank you and David so much for giving that time and adding some juicy tidbits to the webinar itself.
Thank you.
Awesome. Great. And then I have one more question that's come in through the chat. We'll go back to the dry compliance stuff. So I'll answer that quickly, and then we'll wrap up here. Just a question came in regarding whether donations to employees need to be tracked. So like Gunel was saying, if you give some sushi, or if you give, put something in the break room, we do not, in Santa Clara County, we're not requiring that to be tracked. So what does need to be tracked is donations made to external organizations, like we refer to them as food recovery organizations, but maybe it's a church, maybe it's an organization coming to pick up that food. So those are the donations that need to be tracked. We don't require you to track donations made to employees. Again, when we come for inspections, we will discuss this, or in your reporting, you should write down that you do that, but we don't require you to track that food. Great. Well, thank you all so much for being here. Yeah, thanks, Gunel, and we will send out the recording in the next couple of weeks.